So thanks for the introduction and the opportunity to share what we've learned as an organisation, supporting strategies to keep patients and site staff safe during lockdown and these times of COVID-19. No one predicted the impact that this particular situation brought upon the world, and no one was arguably ready or had imagined the huge impact it's brought on all aspects of daily life. And today, Michelle and I will give you insights to how we've seen challenges overcome, facing them as partners with our clients, and introducing digital solutions overnight to help patients and keep them safe. So some of the heroic efforts our colleagues at Medable have delivered are quite staggering, and we couldn't be more proud of the team. They've worked day and night delivering new solutions and digital innovations which have kept patients and clinicians safe and clinical trials moving forward. Today we'll share our insights and answer some of these questions and walk through some experiences that Medable have had as an organisation. So we're all sharing the same reality, and almost overnight everything we knew has changed. All aspects of our healthcare system have had to change to cope with the demands and expected demand of COVID-19 patients as they impact our hospitals and daily way of life. And as well as the impact on this and normal practice, it's greatly impacted clinical trials as those patients are now unable to get to site, meet their clinicians, and follow the protocol requirements needed to be able to drive successful outcomes in their clinical trials. So very quickly, we had to react. And the first focus was on the patient. How can we keep them connected to the study when a site may no longer be able to operate? And in some cases, the site staff couldn't operate and couldn't visit with their patient at the same time as well. So there really had to be changes and adoption of models that we just would never have envisioned in a clinical trial before. So in some cases, WhatsApp and Zoom were deployed. But there were gaps and challenges here as data privacy and security issues rose. So Medable quickly deployed our televisit solution and a televisit-like capability, which was a nimble, flexible interaction option that was GDPR, HIPAA, CFR Part 11 compliant, and provided a full audit trail built on platform, which removed those security issues that had been faced by other solutions. A number of our operational models were challenged and really forced to change. And one of the biggest areas which affected patients was gaining access to their medication. So we've worked with a number of our partners to support this through the Medable patient app, leveraging those data streams through the wider Medable platform. And for example, large healthcare organisations like the NHS in the UK were drowning in manual processes which had to be introduced to manage that initial impact of patients no longer coming into site. So pharmacists and support staff and study staff had to prepare, ship, track, manually manage that confirmation process that patients had received their medication, and then be able to document it in a compliant manner that in the future we can go back and make sure that everything can be tied up. So we can remove these challenges when you introduce the right digital workflows, and Medable has integrated these solutions and workflows specifically designed to remove the onerous manual inputs which have been implemented as workarounds as a result of the situation that we're in right now. So the overarching result that we've seen is that now more than ever, the patient is at the centre of what we do, and we now need to bring the trial to the patient. And we've seen an immediate explosion of change to digital, which has enabled us to support patients in their own home. Reimagining approaches with remote e-consent, home healthcare and nurses where we have partners, and tracking activity through connected devices and wearables have all supported the patient and the ability to connect when needed to the site. And by also supporting that with a televisit, makes the patient feel that they are still part of the trial and has helped them with that continuation of their healthcare. So we've had to rapidly shift to that patient-centric model where the disruption and exposure on the patient has really driven all of the decisions. So according to clinicaltrials.gov, and this data was taken from the 15th of May, there were around 300,000 global research studies. And within that, an estimated 55,000 trials were actively enrolling. And unsurprisingly, data shows that there's been a dramatic shift to remote engagement in clinical trials as a result of COVID-19. Now, arguably, this has been the biggest global learning event of our time, and some may be surprised at how quickly our children and grandparents have embraced technology and been able to learn those new approaches in order to stay connected in an unfamiliar isolation and enforced lockdown. But I mean, we already knew that this adoption was possible. We've worked with many different patient demographics. We've seen firsthand how technology can be adopted. And even as an example of this, we've been involved in studies screening up to 11,000 patients, and then those patients identified and randomized further down the line. But it was a macular degeneration study. So we've worked with very elderly populations who had impaired eyesight, being able to download our apps, leverage that information, provide pre-consent, and utilise the Medable Platform as a suite. So if we think about specifically what have we seen in the industry now, and where are the key drivers that have really impacted things from a clinical trial perspective? There's really been three areas, I think, where we've had to deploy and strategize and consult with all of our partners and all of our clients. And the obvious and the immediate focus has been, how do we keep our patients and site staff safe? And in some instances, we've had patients not being able to visit sites and site staff not being able to access their sites. So there's been multiple all hands on deck situations to deploy our platform capabilities to support televisits and data collection in lockdown in multiple countries, which has enabled that remote engagement needed to treat patients at home and maintain that treatment pathway to support our sites as they're also facing those same struggles. So Michelle, further down the presentation, will share some of those key learnings and how we pivoted and adapted, and how organisations were forced to really change and expedite timeframes of innovations that could, again, keep those patients and site staff safe and keep trials moving forward wherever we could. So the next focus and where that focus now shifted is, how do we then look at those trials that were paused or put on hold and had to stop, and look at ways that we can restart studies, reevaluate how we could introduce some digital workflows and data collection methods that would enable us to mitigate risk if future waves of COVID impacted that study again. How could we look at ways that patients who had started a study could then keep moving forward in times when it's uncertain as to what might happen next in many ways? And according to a recent survey, 32% of trials have been stopped or delayed. And importantly, we also have taken from that survey that 35% of patients were actually worried about going into a hospital at the risk of being exposed to COVID-19 too. So there's a couple of factors going on there that would really impact our trials moving forward. So studies which have been put on hold in some situations, we're now identifying opportunities to remotely re-consent patients, and look at ways to identify assessments and visit schedules which can be changed or adapted to include remote patient-reported outcomes or connect activity trackers and wearables and devices, as well as televisits, to make sure that that patient-to-physician engagement can be in a virtual event, but allow them to connect in either ad hocly or part of a planned visit. So these protocol changes in flight are being designed in order to really help patients reduce that impact of future waves of COVID-19 and again allow them to stay connected to their clinical trial. So as we now get to that third stage and we're planning for the future, we're really assessing each protocol for digital fit. And that's the kind of key factor, is how do we make sure that the design of digital workflows are embedded at the very start of the design of the protocol and the study assessments. And not all studies will be suitable for a full decentralized approach, but there are ways to digitally innovate significant parts of the protocol to enable patients to engage remotely. And more than ever, we are consulting with our sponsors to digitally deliver enterprise innovation, centralizing those disparate data streams in one interoperable platform in order to enable those decentralized strategies. So we are constantly identifying ways to make sites more effective, more efficient, and also providing choices to both sites and patients, which can improve participation and can also improve compliance. So this quote really resonated with me, and I think it's difficult for any of us to imagine that we could easily resort back to life as we once knew it. But I do think we can take all of these lessons that we're learning and improve and appreciate the impact change can make, but in a really positive way as we plan for the future. So with that, I'd like to hand over to our CEO, Dr. Michelle Longmire, who will take more insights into some of those decentralized methods and how they can really impact and drive compliance, patient interaction, engagement, and site efficiencies.
Well, thanks, Jill, and thank you everyone for your time today. Certainly, we have all, been faced with so many challenges around COVID-19, from individuals and families, communities, and countries to the entire world, really. I think as we look at what we can do to ensure that trials move forward and participants and clinicians stay safe, I think there's, tremendous amount of opportunity for us to ensure that research processes are moving forward, and for us to also ensure that participants and patients are safe, leveraging new trial methodologies. And one of the things we've observed is that necessity is the mother of invention, and that's an old adage, but it's certainly true. And prior to COVID-19, really decentralized or direct-to-patient methodologies were seen as cutting edge and innovative, and really now they've become essential. And this enables us to generate the proof points around safety, around evidence generation, and the ability, overall feasibility of decentralized trials to be used across therapeutic areas and phases, the proof points that we really need to be able to feel comfortable as an industry to do this at scale. So, we feel that this decentralized trials alleviate a number of the challenging issues we face in clinical trials in general. First is around accelerated enrollment, being able to connect with participants really anytime, anywhere for that recruitment, but then also the enrollment and enabling screening to be much more of a direct-to-participant process where we're able to engage and also utilize fewer clinical resources and more direct patient empowerment in that screening phase, whether it's we're doing virtual screening with telemedicine, or we're enabling diagnostic testing, laboratory testing to be done within the community and closer to the patient's home than would otherwise be done in a traditional site model. We feel that this is very important to reducing the patient and the site burden, and then ultimately, beyond accelerating enrollment, really enabling engagement that ensures retention. These two aspects alone from our experience, can really reduce trial timelines and ensure that decentralized trial approaches add value. Finally is around the science and data quality. So as an industry, we're advancing the way that direct-to-patient and decentralized can capture those endpoints and can capture robust data across broader participant populations. One of the limitations right now in clinical trials in terms of the quality of our data is really the very limited participation that we see in terms of diversity versus, the global set of patients affected by a given disease. So by leveraging decentralized and opening access, ensuring broader participation, we can really improve the science, the quality of the data, and the applicability of the insights to the broader patient population that would ultimately be benefiting from the medication once it's commercialized. So how do we reach patients in the COVID-19 world? We know that there were challenges before COVID. 37% of sites failed to meet enrollment targets. 10% of sites failed to enroll a single patient. 35% of patients dropped out, citing logistical challenges. New challenges in the COVID world include social distancing, site closures, fear of being in a healthcare setting due to fear of exposure. So there's really new opportunities to accelerate drug development by leveraging decentralized trial methodologies. We can increase the accessibility and therefore broaden the geographic reach. We can also enhance the patient-physician relationship by offering more convenience and a sense of security by delivering care in the home or more conveniently at a time when participants are fearful of being exposed in a traditional healthcare setting. And we can offer choices that provide patient centricity, also in parallel tackling those pre-COVID challenges of sites failing to enroll even a single patient, and participant dropout due to lack of convenience and logistical challenges. So this is really the opportunity at hand. It's both to meet some of the pre-COVID challenges, enable the delivery in a COVID world, and fundamentally to do outstanding science, strong patient engagement with patient retention, and ideally faster clinical trials. So let me talk a little bit about rapid virtualization and what we've done. Now, we kind of at this point are putting virtualization into two categories. One, or actually I should say three. One is study in flight simply needs virtualization to ensure endpoint collection and patient safety in a setting where we were seeing patients in person beforehand. The second category is that similar subset of studies, but now looking for broader decentralization, largely driven by a lack of real clarity around when the containment measures are going to be lifted and when it will be safe to see participants in the traditional model. The third category are studies that have not yet started, where now that decentralized is becoming more mainstream, we can plan ahead of time to facilitate decentralization in studies that have not yet started. So this case study is looking at rapid virtualization of a study in flight. In this case, it's a phase 3 psoriasis study that had enrolled a very hard to enroll set of participants who were affected by genital psoriasis. And, the study had been going on for quite some time prior to COVID, and there were really important study milestones for certain participants around that endpoint data capture. So Medable was engaged by our partner to say, let's rapidly virtualize and enable the participant who had a visit coming up in 1 week to be able to be cared for, and a set of participants who all had visits within the upcoming weeks to be able to be cared for and for primary endpoint data to be captured. So through this, we deployed a global, very lightweight telemedicine solution where patients were invited to the solution, and they were able to bring their own device for that download and be able to be able to engage in the visit through a simple bring your own device application. We translated this into over 26 languages with a very simple consent that was simply to receive that care via telemedicine and consented to the overall technology modality. At that point, the clinician was able to schedule the televisit based on the protocol schedule of assessments. And then the participant and the doctor were able to connect according to that pre-existing study visit, and the physician was able to capture those important endpoints using telemedicine Additionally, in this solution, we created an assessment for the physician to be able to rate the quality of the exam, given that they were going to, at the end of the study, there would be data from patients who were seen in person and patients who were seen virtually. We thought it was important to provide more context around the examination and the use of telemedicine so that this could be taken into consideration at the final data analysis. This entire process from the time we were contacted to the first patient in was actually 10 days. I think it was slightly less time than that. And it was all really just to say, telemedicine can be done. We see it now as a safety net. It's an essential technology that every site should have access to, and every patient should have a simple capability of leveraging telemedicine. And we're able to do it globally, and we're able to do it securely and in a way that really works within the broader clinical trial process, which is extremely important. I'd say additionally, right now, we're training our physicians and our site staff how to use these technologies, not from the site, but from their own home. And this has really highlighted several things to our team, and I think just in general has raised awareness in the industry. And we're currently in an era where site monitoring is really the traditional site monitoring is not feasible. Additionally, more data is captured from participants. So we need to rethink our data strategies to ensure that we've got the technologies, the solutions, and systems to ensure we're capturing data and we're capturing it well in a world that's transitioning away from sites and transitioning directly to patients. The way that we do this with Medable is with an integrated platform. I think, taking a step back even before you think about the technology, really what we're doing is executing science, and no protocol is the same as any other protocol. I think there's certainly an opportunity for more standardization, but we also need to approach this with flexibility and really with the lens of let's apply technology to reduce barriers to enable more seamless science that will enable us to capture that evidence and efficacy and safety data. So our platform provides a host of capabilities, and these modules are applied strategically by our team and by our partner CROs with the goal of removing barriers to clinical trials to provide patient centricity, better clinical care, and faster studies. So the capabilities are broad, but every single protocol we ask ourselves, what are the barriers? How can we make this something patients will choose to be a part of and continue to be a part of? And how can we capture the safety and efficacy data in real time and understand where the pitfalls or challenges are in real time across any study and globally? So that's what the Medable platform enables us to do. We call this process protocol fit digital. And these studies range from full scope decentralized, certainly becoming much more the mainstream given the need, to solutions that are enabling decentralization in core areas such as decentralized screening, where we may be looking to recruit for a rare disease globally, and enabling that participant to connect to a trial and further qualify can be an area of some of the greatest benefit. We have studies where our decentralized screening methodologies and strategies have reduced the study timelines by 50% and have reduced study budgets by over $25 million. So let's not limit our thinking to the application of decentralized to the evidence generation phase alone, but let's really think about the entire process of clinical development and how digital can be leveraged for a patient-first process that's going to enable speed, patient centricity, and better data. Importantly, remote patient monitoring is critical. We're seeing this as a need right now, of course, in COVID. And prior to COVID, this was an area that our company had strategically focused on. Our lessons are really about one device. We don't want a patient to have to download 3 different applications, or even in a provision device study, have to access 3 different applications. We want one streamlined solution that the patient can use seamlessly. And we want this to capture the data that's essential for that trial, and we want it to be able to be available in a time that will provide the clinical opportunity for intervention if it's related to safety. So Medable has really vet the world of connected devices, and we're partnering with the leading companies who can provide these capabilities in the core physiologic and vital sign areas at global scale. We certainly are continuously partnering in the domain, but we're very selective with whom we partner with, because we found that in any study, phase 2, phase 3, one of the most one of the biggest challenges you can introduce is a connected device. This is a new area. Many participants are not familiar with how to use connected devices, and this needs to be done very thoughtfully with the right solution going into it, the right level of participant and patient testing in advance of study enrollment, and the right degree of patient support during the study. We've learned, though, over the last year and a half that this can be done well, and it can provide incredible value to a study. We can open the door to vital sign and continuous monitoring. We can open the door to ongoing safety and evidence generation outside of the clinic. And when we choose the right device and we provide the right level of patient support, connected devices can really facilitate that full decentralization and enable a world with greater patient centricity and far greater patient convenience. So we're really thinking about this as an ecosystem. Medable is a tech company, but what we aim to provide for our partners are the best and most successful trials. And that doesn't just require technology. That requires an expert team who can look at a given protocol and provide the solution that will be successful. So in our process and in our strategy, we've partnered with the leading ancillary service providers, from home nurses, connected device companies, companies that have been long in the industry around cardiac safety monitoring or spirometry, whatever it's going to take for us to provide this overall solution that will be most successful for a given trial. It's important to know this is not a hodgepodge or a piecemeal approach. We bring these partners together, and what we have realized is that you have to centralize to decentralize effectively. These partners are all integrated to the Medable Platform with automated workflows and real-time data collection, so that we know what patients are performing well and engaged in the study, what sites are really able to effectively recruit, and in evidence generation, what's going well and where are the challenges. How can we optimize studies in real time if we don't have a centralized approach to decentralization? That's the Medable strategy, and so far we have seen just tremendous success in enabling our partners to take clinical trials forward outside of the site and facilitate a clinical trial model that is one that thinks about patients first. And we think this is really an important advancement for our industry, and importantly will be a way for us to get effective therapies to patients faster through broader, richer participation in trials, better evidence generation, and overall more accelerated clinical trial timelines. So there's a lot of questions about, sites and will sites accept the new normal? What we have found is this is certainly the case. Myself, as a practicing dermatologist, I am very excited about the way that technology has evolved my practice. And Medable is actively partnering with sites to ensure that we are empowering this incredible set of clinicians and experts to be a critical part of the future of decentralized trials, as well as the current for decentralized trials, given that that's where we are today. So sites have been very key partners to Medable. They help us understand what we're doing well and what we can do better. And they also enable us to really provide outstanding clinical care to participants, even when the participants are not physically in the site. So what can we learn? We've learned that successful sites embrace innovation, that they're on board in general. They're already pushing to remove processes that just don't make sense. I don't think, you've ever probably met a doctor who likes to waste time. I think clinicians are always looking to optimize workflows and processes, because we're faced with a tremendous challenge of not only, providing that clinical care, but also generating that evidence as investigators. We've found that sites who are looking to virtual are eager to integrate technology in a way that makes that delivery of care and the collection of data a seamless process, as well as interest in giving patients choices. I think that we're all out as clinicians to deliver the best care, and we want this to work for our patients. So sites are now actively looking to give patients choices around what's going to work for them to ensure engagement and ongoing retention in these important clinical trials. So patients, sites, and sponsors are ready for decentralized trials. This is what we've seen certainly over the last several months with COVID-19. I think we are at an inflection point as an industry, and it's really our responsibility to do this and harness the current opportunity and show it can be done well. And it can be done well in partnership with tech companies and sponsors and patients and sites, device companies, and that we can really advance and move to a new era of trials that really is patient-centric.